All right, Lisa Pence, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm excited for us to all learn today about ADUs. We have two great speakers today, Sabrina and Lisa, who have been doing this for years now. And so I'm excited to learn quite a bit about it. And I am the sponsor today. So my name is Lisa Spence at First American Title. And I am here to help you with all your title needs, your marketing needs, your business growth. There might be a tool or two that might be useful when you are looking for ADUs or you're thinking about doing it. And we've got a really neat, cool property search profile that is all internet or web-based, where it's an app where you can go on, you can search property, find, more information about a property that you might be purchasing, or you might want more information on adding to it. So I will put in my chat box my phone number and contact information. So if you have any questions, it's called My First Am, and you can go in, look up any property, not only in Colorado, but throughout the United States. And it will tell you some property information. It'll show you plat maps, kind of show you where the home is located within the area. Or the little subdivision. And then also you can do different things from it as well, like net sheets and order O&Es and do some farming. And so there's all kinds of things that you can do with this app. It's all free. I think you'll absolutely love it. So I'll put my information in the chat. And if you want to get signed up on it, just let me know and I'll get you signed up. So with that, then I'm going to turn it back to these lovely ladies and let them get on with the class. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Lisa. We love you. You're one of our faves. Thank you for being here today. So much fun. It's a windy, weird day, so it's kind of a perfect day to be here with you guys indoors. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Kerin-Welch, and I work for the company ADU4U. I do education and community outreach for them. They are a modern carriage house builder that literally takes you through the process from start to finish, including financing. That's why Justin Pataccio is with us today, because he is our lending guy for the company. Sabrina has been putting up with me, I was saying to Lisa earlier, for 9-ish years now. We have been teaching classes together, Airbnb 101, all about ADUs, and I also teach a personal branding class that's super fun. We are currently building an accessory dwelling unit in our backyard with ADU4U, and I absolutely fell in love with the company through that process and went to work for them. I've been a member of the Denver Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee here for, gosh, I think 3-ish years now, if not longer. And I was just recently selected to be a member of the ADUs in Denver Advisory Committee. We have already had one meeting. I am super excited about the changes that we're going to try to make legislatively, excuse me, that's a tough one, to kind of cut some of the red tape here in Denver that seems to be unnecessary when it comes to building accessory dwelling units, which we all know on this call, many of you are real estate agents. We desperately need the inventory. We need the rental properties. This is a national conversation. I think it can take care of some of the issues that we are having with housing. So I'm super excited to be a part of that. And I will continue to educate all of you as things change on that level. I'll let Sabrina introduce herself. I call her my work wife, the brains behind our operation here.
Thanks for the introduction, Lisa. Thank you so much for hosting. So excited to be here today. So excited to talk about ADUs and answer all of your questions. My name is Sabrina Calnan, and I am an Airbnb expert and guide. So if you have clients that are looking to start Airbnb, I am the person that can help them out. I really came to these accessory dwelling units kind of naturally. So I have one that was built in 1930 on my own property. I was one of the very lucky ones that has one that is allowed to be there. And I Airbnb out that carriage house myself. So, that's kind of how I initially came to accessory dwelling units. And then I also work with a ton of investors. And I can tell you that every single investor that I've ever worked with that had a lot that was zoned for an accessory dwelling unit, or even had like a garage on there, or a big lot, or something that was some sort of accessory dwelling unit on their lot, whether legal or not legal, was is very interested in turning it into an actual accessory dwelling unit that they could do something with. So Lisa and I, as we've been teaching our Airbnb 101 class, we've really seen how the two subjects sort of marry together, and accessory dwelling units have become such a hot topic as of late that we decided to put together a class for you guys. So I'm very excited to be here, excited to answer all of your questions. We do have the chat disabled just to keep things kind of clean and not distracted, but we do have the Q&A open. So please do feel free to put any questions in the Q&A as we go through the class. What we'll do is we'll be sure to answer your questions, pause and answer your questions every now and then, and we'll kind of go from there.
I forgot to introduce Kent with Eclipse Sewer, who is also, he's on the job today. We are keeping him very busy with ADU4U. He is our sewer guy and absolutely incredible. He replaced our sewer line for the build of our accessory dwelling unit. He did such a great job. We love him and his fiance, Sandy. My husband and him ended up having beers together and chatting after he did our work. So I cannot recommend them highly enough. If you need a good sewer company, they are the ones to go to. His information will be in our follow-up email. If you have any sewer questions, he'll pop in and answer those too. So you want to go back, Sabrina?
I'm trying.
Okay.
The slides are doing their own thing at the moment. I think I tried to move forward and there was a lag. So let me figure out what's going on.
All right, it's all right.
Sorry, everyone. Got to be smarter than
you're going to actually see the entire class before we tell you what we're going to do today.
Technology here. There we go. I think we've got it.
That's it. Thank you. So today's discussion, the outline is going to be what is an ADU. A lot of people don't know what that is, and please don't feel bad if you do not. We're going to explain that to you today. We're going to talk about regulatory trends, the Denver updates, the economic impact, how to get started, cost to build, which is always interesting, and people are always surprised either one way or the other on that one. Return on investment, and we will be emailing you guys a bunch of resources after this class, and we can be a resource for you afterwards, obviously, and then the stuff that we'll send you will be super helpful. So is this me, Sabrina? It is. What is an accessory dwelling unit? We will go back and forth between ADU and accessory dwelling unit. The common names are a carriage house, a granny flat, a mother-in-law suite, a Fonzie flat. I just recently heard it's now called a millennial something. Did you hear that, Sabrina? I thought that was hysterical. Because our kids are going to come back to us probably. I mean, I don't know how, my kids are in college right now. I don't know how they will afford to buy in Denver, and I don't know how they will afford to rent in Denver. And that may be a use for our accessory dwelling unit. It is a secondary unit to the main home. That is the point of it right now. You cannot sell one or the other. They come as a package deal. It can be attached or detached. It could be a guest house, a unit over the garage. It can be a basement mother-in-law suite. Ours is going to be detached in our backyard, and we'll talk more about that later.
So the different uses of accessory dwelling units, there's so many different uses. Multi-generational living, ideal for that aging family. These days, senior housing, even unassisted senior housing, is very expensive. Lisa, what your aunt and uncle are paying $9,000 a month or something ridiculous like that. So, being able to put grandparents or aging family members in that accessory dwelling unit is a great use of that space. Downsizing, Lisa, you spoke to that a little bit. you know, move into the smaller home as you downsize, and then let family members live in the big home, or rent out the larger home, whatever you'd like to do with that. You know, my favorite use, of course, is the last one here, to use it as some sort of a rental, use it as a long or a short-term rental. And what we're finding here, you know, with short-term rentals or Airbnb, short-term rental is anything rented for less than 30 days at a time. A lot of cities are allowing people to live in the main home and short-term rent the accessory dwelling unit, including Denver. Denver is one of those places. And they've made it very clear that if you want to Airbnb your accessory dwelling unit, you're allowed to do that, so long as your accessory dwelling unit is legitimately there. You know, it was built with the proper permits, it's in the proper zone and things like that. Lisa, did you want to share anything more?
Yeah, so ironically, we just toured this facility that my aunt and uncle have moved to. They do not need assistance, and they're paying $8,000 a month for it. It is gorgeous, but wow, I mean, that is a lot of money to pay for a place. We have heard that in Denver, it's anywhere between $7,000 and $9,000 a month for these facilities, and that can undo a family, or at least leave them without being able to leave any money for their children. What we see at ADU4U is a lot of people who are using it for the multi-generational use, that parents are moving here to be closer to their grandchildren, or they want to be closer to their kids and do not want to pay these astronomical costs when they don't need to. And then they can help with the kids. They can also be close to them, but that's, you know, they can also help out with the children. We are, like I said earlier, we are recently empty nesters, and our idea originally was that we would sell our home and downsize, but in this market, it made no sense financially. What we could get for our home is great, but it would be a financial, basically, you know, we wouldn't earn any money from trying to downsize. We would pay just the same as we would to sell. And that is if we could even get into a house. So one of the things that we've thought about is that we would downsize to our accessory dwelling unit and rent out our main home. And then, of course, you know that the long and short-term rental is a great way to make money on these. And what they say, they pay themselves off in 5 to 6 years, which is incredible, really. And many people, what we're finding, Sabrina, is that, and you know this, is that there's so many people who are not using their accessory dwelling units as a short-term rental. And we're also finding that a lot of people start off using it as a short-term rental and then turn it into a long-term rental. So there's a lot of cool data out there that we're finding, and it'll be interesting to see if that changes over time.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And, you know, for my personal use, we use our accessory dwelling unit as a short-term rental, and it's worked out beautifully for us. We've been using it that way for probably the last 6 years. When we purchased the home, we had a long-term renter in there, and we just have so much fun with the Airbnb. And it's really not, you know, because it's an accessory dwelling unit, it's not a disruption to our lives at all. We will rarely even see the people who are staying. You know, we'll interact with them through the Airbnb app and everything like that, but it's not a disruption, and it's never been an issue for us. So we've really enjoyed that aspect of having the accessory dwelling unit.
Well, and you've said before too, it covers your mortgage. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it was that we never expected. You know, the accessory dwelling unit was just something. When we purchased the property, we knew we wanted something with multiple units on the property. We kind of had this in our minds that we wanted to be really flexible with ourselves. If we decided to move in and then move out 3 months later, we wanted to either be able to cash flow or be able to have made improvements to the home and sell it right away without losing money. And buying a place, you know, this was back in 2012 with an accessory dwelling unit, was not a very popular thing to do.
Tell them what your real estate agent told you.
Yeah, we had a real estate agent tell us that nobody wants a home with an accessory dwelling unit. Your value will not go up. And lo and behold, here we have you know, 8 years later, the complete opposite situation. And you know, when you go to finance a home with an accessory dwelling unit, they don't really know what to do with it with regards to the appraisal. Our accessory dwelling unit, you know, back in the day they appraised it $0 for us. Yet it adds so much value for our family and so much extra income that we never even anticipated. Like Lisa said, it's been just such like a windfall of found money, being able to rent it out on a short-term basis, you know, covers our mortgage. We never expected that at all. So, you know, it's for us, it's been really great. And that's what we find, you know, a lot of people really enjoy having the ADUs because of the additional income too, especially here in Denver. I don't know what's the median home price these days. I'm sure you guys on the call know better than me, but I think it's, you know, somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 right now. So,
and the data that we read recently is that you can price these 35% higher than you would with, you know, without an ADU. So, and what we know historically is that they're flying off the market. And you and I know that in these classes, we hear that most of the agents that are attending them, they have buyers that are currently looking for a situation like this. So, and this is going to blow up in Denver, you guys. I know it. I feel it. Our company is busier than ever. So it's just really great that you guys are here and learning more about it. I think we have a couple questions.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions in there. I think Kathleen's question, are you allowed to build an ADU in Jeffco? A few of us have heard they have to be for family members and not technically rented out. I think, you know, that's something we should answer a little bit later as we get to kind of the rules behind accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah,
we'll definitely get to that. Doug asks, who are the people who typically rent an ADU? You know, I think that's really location dependent. You know, for me, I'm located in West Wash Park. So we're in a very close location to downtown. It's a desirable location for both long-term and short-term renters. The types of people we get in our accessory dwelling unit, we get a lot of people who are coming to visit family members in the area. We're not that far from apartment complexes, and you know, people, you know, sort of the boomers like to come to visit their children in these apartment complexes and small houses, or people just having babies and their children don't have the space for them. So they come and they stay in our accessory dwelling unit. We have a lot of people who come just to check out Denver. A lot of people who are working in Denver for the week or whatever. And then they're going out at night. You know, our location lends to both tourism and visiting family members and work. So it tends to work out really well for us. But it really depends on where you're located and what the attractions are there. But an accessory dwelling unit, you know, anyone who wants not to be in a big apartment complex, you know, if you're kind of past that point in your life where you want to be hearing your neighbors and things like that, an accessory dwelling unit is a great option, especially if you don't need a huge place. And, you know, some of these accessory dwelling units are decent size, like Lisa's is going to be nice and big. Doug does ask what's the typical length of stay. You know, for a short-term rental, average length of stay is between 3 and 4 days. If you're renting out your property furnished on a monthly basis, we see the average for those monthly furnished rentals tends to be about 6 weeks for most of the monthly furnished rentals. And then, of course, you could always do a traditional 12-month lease on these properties as well.
Yeah, Mo is asking about HOAs, and that's an excellent question. I would definitely do your due diligence on that. We are not finding that they are friendly to those. So another reason why we really teach this class is because we don't want people to get into a scenario where they planned on using the home for rental income and purchase and then find that they cannot. So Sabrina and I are really good resources for that. It's very specific city by city and county by county. And sometimes it's just what we're finding with accessory dwelling units is even if your neighbor has one, that for some reason you can't, because it's very detail oriented. So just make sure as an agent that you are not promising something before you've done your due diligence, and make sure that they are allowed for, especially even what the person is wanting to use it for. Again, those rules and regulations are different city by city and county by county. So
yeah, that's the differences and the changes and rules and regulations that are happening kind of keep Lisa and I in business here. We update this class on a monthly basis because there's new news, new rules, changing regulations every time. And so, you know, I just want to mention here, Kathleen, I accidentally moved your question to the answered live, but we will answer it live. We haven't answered it yet. But you know, some of the trends, I think we've talked about it, they're really growing in popularity. The reason they're growing in popularity is because it does help to reduce urban sprawl. We do tend to see, you know, we get to sort of fill in density without changing the landscape of a city and things like that. So they're really being encouraged. They are being encouraged as a way to help lower and middle income homeowners build wealth. We're seeing a lot of political support for accessory dwelling units in that way. And we're seeing updates and changes in construction technology all the time, which, you know, they're not quite there yet, but I certainly anticipate that this will make building and adding accessory dwelling units to your property a lot easier and faster over time. Here yet. Okay, so you know, here in Denver, this keeps changing. The current zoning, I mean, it's probably more than 25% of Denver now, because what Denver is doing is they are just rezoning neighborhoods. So Chaffee Park, East Colfax, Sloan's Lake, all of these areas have been blanket rezoned. We've got Regis Berkeley, Villa Park, Barnum West, Highlands, Valverde, Alfmar Park, West Colfax. These are all in the process of being completely rezoned to allow for accessory dwelling units. You know, right now we're definitely seeing more of the northwestern Denver neighborhoods are being looked at for this. Once again, you know, the city of Denver is really looking at this as a way to increase affordable housing, to allow for middle and low-income homeowners to build wealth or to have more multi-generational living on their properties. So, you know, they're kind of targeting these areas, you know, first. They are being encouraged, you know, they're part of the Blueprint Denver plan. So, and there's a whole task force now that Lisa's a part of that is solely dedicated to making it easier to build accessory dwelling units in Denver. And even the city is offering economic incentives to do so. The city council, you know, has signed off on an agreement to offer up to $500,000 in grants total, up to $25,000 each for someone who's looking to build an accessory dwelling unit on their property. And we will be sending out the links to all of this for you guys after the webinar. So don't worry, you guys will receive a follow-up email with a recording of the webinar and links to all of this.
William is asking about how you find out all of this information, and we are working on trying to put something together. It is really difficult because it is, like Sabrina said, it is ever changing. Some of the cities' websites are excellent. Denver's is excellent. But they're behind. I mean, this is a trend that is moving so fast that is hard to keep up. So I would recommend checking the website first. If it isn't clear there, making a call, or really just connect with me. My job with ADU4U is to do that legwork for my agents, for the agents out there. To find that stuff out. Do you have anything else on that, Sabrina?
No, you know, I would just say that it is very complicated. So even if you are in a zone where you're allowed to have an ADU, it doesn't mean that your particular lot will meet the requirements needed in order to build that accessory dwelling unit. Each different zone has different requirements for setbacks, percentage of property on the lot, and that sort of thing. And so you could very easily be in a neighborhood where your two neighbors next door both have accessory dwelling units as well as the one across the street, but for whatever reason, because of the way that your lot is structured and your house is on that lot, you wouldn't be able to build one. So all I can say is call Lisa. And then she's like, she is your resource, because it's very difficult to find it out on your own. And Denver has 60 different zones right now. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, sorry, Sabrina, really quick. We're finding that lot size is, minimum lot size has been a big issue. And that is definitely something that we want to tackle in this. I cannot tell you how many calls I get a day that people are sitting on a zoned even lot for it, but they cannot build because of minimum lot size. So hang tight. That is one of the top things that we're going to work on with ADU Denver, the advisory committee.
Lisa, we have a question from Wendy. What are the maximum dimensions on an 8,000 square foot lot? Do you happen to know that off the top of your head? Hey, Lisa, I think you are muted. I'm not sure what's happened here. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Okay, there, is that right?
Yay.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
yay, sorry. Okay, let me start over. So if there's an A in the zone, the minimum lot size is 3,000. If there's a B, the minimum lot size is 4,500. If it's in a C zone, the minimum lot size is 5,500. What we're finding is these areas that are blanket rezoning, there's an equity issue, right? Because they maybe do not have a big lot and they need the ADU. So I'm thinking this is one of the first, gosh, our thing is going nuts today.
Sorry.
That's all right. So the big issue, one of the top issues that was discussed in the first meeting was that we have to change this minimum lot size. But in 8,000, so our lot is 10,000 square feet, so we can build the biggest one. But in 8,000 is a really good size. So between 7,000 square feet, for a lot larger than 7,000 square feet, you can do as large as ours, which is 1,000 on the bottom and 750 on top. And that's as big as you can do. So that's a great lot size, again, depending on the zone. Oh, thank you, Wendy. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Other questions on that? I think we got both of those, right?
Yeah. Let's make sure, Lisa, let's answer the Jeffco question. And I definitely want to mention just that, you know, Denver in particular is allowing on anything that's zoned as a single unit, they're only allowing you to build accessory dwelling units on a primary residence. So as an investor, you don't get to find a property that's zoned with an ADU, build an ADU and rent both units out separately. It's really meant to be a secondary unit. It's meant to be lived on, you know, have one primary resident there, and that primary resident can then rent out the property or rent out the ADU or not. But, you know, that I think that's the main thing that I wanted to clear up with all of these rules and regulations. And then, do you know if it's the same for Jeffco? It sounds like, you know, that's kind of the buzz out there, Lisa.
I'm so sorry. I think I've forgotten the question about Jeffco.
Oh, it's are ADUs allowed in Jeffco? A few of us have heard that they have to be for family members and not technically rented out.
That doesn't sound right to me. I would have to do some digging on that, and it depends where in Jeffco, because Jeffco is a large area. But that doesn't seem right to me, that it would just have to be family members. I have not heard that.
All right. Yeah, we could definitely look in, you know, just
Yeah, I'll dig. Connect with me after class so that I know exactly where in Jeffco you're talking. And if I have an address, I can answer details about that. So just to let you guys know that when you come to me with a question, having an address would be incredibly helpful, because Jeffco covers a large part of the state, and that it could be different depending on what address we're talking about. I have not heard a rule anywhere.
Hey, Lisa, I think you've gone on mute again.
Okay, back. Our computers
They have a mind of their own today.
they do. Okay, Sabs, I think this is you, right?
No, this is you.
Okay, so permitting and where to start. So what you want to do is start with your city's zoning code. In Denver, if you have a TU, a GMU, or a GRO in your zone district, or a 1 at the end of it, an ADU is likely allowed. Again, constantly double checking this, right? Because it's changing all of the time. And use me as a resource for that. Many cities have detailed guides for ADUs. Denver's offers, their project guide is incredible, really good. I would encourage you to check it out. We will send that resource out to you after the class. We are finding that Denver has not denied a rezone in a very long time. We rezone our property. It took 9 months, but because they haven't denied a rezone in so long, we continued with the project. We did not wait until it was rezoned. Gratefully, most cities do not allow homeowners to DIY without clearly demonstrated proficiency. I would highly encourage you to use a company like ADU4U. I had a real estate agent connect with me last week, and she was trying to piece this project together on her own and stopped because she just got so frustrated, and we're going to hopefully begin to handle it for you. It is everything that is involved in building a home. It's a smaller home, but it is everything that is involved, and almost more complicated than building a home. So please make sure that you are using a company that knows what they are doing. Permits need to be assigned to a contractor, and guys, that takes some time. The city is 14 weeks out now for our permits before we can start the build. So again, we used to say that from start to finish, this would take a year, and we're now saying 18 months from start to finish. 6 months for the planning and permitting, and 9 to 18 months for the construction. Kent, if you can talk to us a little bit about sewer right now, that would be great. Maybe he won't be able to. But you guys, sewer line is a big deal for these builds. Oh, there he is.
There he
Come
is.
here.
Hey, Kent.
Hey.
You want to tell us a little bit about what's involved with the sewer, because it's a big deal with these builds.
Yeah. So at a minimum, you're going to have to, obviously tie in the ADU with the main line for the house. And that's kind of the minimum if your line has already been replaced. The city usually, if you have an older line, well, number one, it's a great time to take advantage because we're already going to be there tying in. It'd be a great time to go ahead and do your replacement. Most of these old clay and concrete pipes they're pretty much toast at this point. So, yeah. So, and you're also gonna have to get water back there. So every job's gonna be different. We'll have to kind of see how we need to do it, because sometimes the accessory dwelling units in the back and the sewer main is in the front. So like yours, Lisa. So we have to do that a little bit differently.
Yeah, and we were so lucky that you didn't have to go under the driveway, because don't you find that happens a lot of times?
Yeah, they just kind of put these sewer lines wherever they want. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at figuring out the best way to do it. So if you have any questions and stuff, I can go out and take a look at what you have, and we'll figure out the best way to do it.
Yeah, you're amazing. We had a pipe wrapped in concrete and I thought, oh my God, there's no way that you're gonna be able to do anything with this, and you did.
Yeah, that was that took like 3 hours.
That's why we love you, Kent. All right, does anybody have any questions for Eclipse Sewer? Justin, you want to come on now and talk about the lending piece? There he is.
Sure do. Lending on ADUs, it may not surprise you guys, but mortgage companies don't tend to be the kind of front of the line, most forward thinking industries in the world. So there's still not necessarily specific perfect products for them. That said, there are good products and good options for people that are building ADUs. Typically speaking, people don't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank kind of just sitting there with nothing to do. So typically people are financing them. And there's 3 ways that typically happens without getting too in-depth in which way is best in what situation. People are typically looking at doing a cash out refinance, just your standard refinance if they have a good chunk of equity in their house. With the way that the market has been in Denver over the last decade now, a lot of people are sitting on a lot of equity. So that's probably the most common way. A home equity line of credit can also be used. That may not pay for the entire cost, depending on what you're trying to do, but can be helpful to bridge some gaps in what you're doing as well. And the last option, if you don't have a ton of equity, maybe you just bought a house and you want to build an ADU, is actually doing a construction loan or a renovation loan that will allow you to use the future value of the house, of the property. So what it will be worth once you build the ADU. That process can be a little more involved. I know ADU4U is used to and capable of working through that. So you really want to be with a contractor that's willing to work with you because that's very, very important if you're doing a construction or renovation loan. So that's an option as well, specifically, typically for people that don't have a ton of equity in their house currently.
Justin, yeah, the way ADU4U handles it is you don't have to throw the entire chunk of change at them at the very start. It's a process, and that is incredibly helpful for people. Thanks, Justin. Any questions for him?
We do have a quick question for Kent, and the question is, what about a septic system or septic systems? I'm not sure if Kent is still, here we
Oh,
are.
there he is.
Yeah, so septic systems design based on fixture units, how many bathrooms and faucets and laundry and all that stuff. So they're designed that way. They are design engineer. So a lot of times they kind of over-engineer it, but you may have to take that in consideration if you're going to be using too much of the sewer that the septic system can handle. Might have to upgrade it.
Okay, that's good. Jeff said at one point, Jeff is the owner of ADU4U, that it wouldn't, you know, Kent would know what to do, but it wouldn't really change how we built the ADU. Oh, Justin, if you're still,
That'd be the same. I'll just
So Wendy is asking, what is the interest rate on a home equity loan versus a refi?
Yeah, so you know that rates can have, there's a lot going on there. So without getting into necessarily specific rates, home equity lines of credit typically have higher interest rates than a cash out refinance, which would be refinancing your whole loan into one. So a lot of the decisions on what the best course of action is depends on your current mortgage and the interest rate that is at, and figuring out what the right balance is for your overall cost and payments. So typically, the HELOC home equity line of credit has a higher interest rate. Traditionally, they're also variable interest rates, which means that they would likely be going up in the next couple of years by a pretty substantial amount. They're not all like that, but that is the traditional home equity line of credit. So again, there's different options and it depends on someone's individual scenario, what's best for them. But yeah, that's typically what you're looking at.
Great. We have more questions here, Sabrina.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of comments regarding Jeffco. So Kathleen says Jeffco rural, picture no city water, no city sewer. So it's another step past zoning generally. And we also run into the questions on well servicing two homes with the Colorado Division of Resources and septic sizes with the health department. So that's, this is really good stuff to consider.
That's great, Kathleen. Thank you.
Yeah. And then someone has mentioned Jeffco and they put in a link. Jeffco short-term rental requirements echoes Sabrina's statement. STRs can only use a primary unit, not ADUs. And in Jeffco, not only does it, I would like to review this. In unincorporated Jeffco, you need to be on an acre of land. And depending on what city you are in Jeffco, that can also change your rules and regulations. And then, let's see here, we have Mo, say you don't live in an HOA and you have an existing outbuilding, such as a carriage house. Do you have to get permission to rent it? The answer to that is it depends on where you live. So if you need to get a short-term rental license, which most of Denver Metro, you do have to get a short-term rental license in order to rent something out short-term. You'll have to get that license and they'll have to give you permission to rent it out. If you're in Denver proper, in the next couple of years, you will need to get a license to long-term rent out units as well. So Denver proper, you definitely need permission. If it's elsewhere, technically it's supposed to be a legitimate zoned and permitted accessory dwelling unit, but they're not doing licensing on long-term rentals in places other than Denver and Boulder right now. So unless you brought something up with the city, it probably wouldn't come up for you to need to get permission for that. But technically you shouldn't be doing it unless you're on the up and up with all pieces of that.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Sabrina, that half of the time what ADU4U ends up doing is coming in and taking care of outbuildings, as you said, that are not up to code, that are not permitted. And these people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it to a place where it can be rented out. And there are inspections happening in a lot of areas, in particular in Denver, to get these licenses. So we run into issues a lot where someone has purchased a home with an outbuilding, even has been used as a rental, and they're finding that a lot of work needs to be done to get it up to code because of these inspections that are occurring now in Denver. And they are now having to put hundreds of thousands of dollars into upgrading the outbuilding, and they're losing all of that rental income while the work is being done. So again, just due diligence on all of these kinds of things, and never assume that even if something is there and has been used for that purpose, can still be used for that purpose in Denver.
Yeah, we're not at this moment in time, we're not seeing a lot of grandfathering in happening. And that's not just Denver. I had a client in Arvada. They have an accessory dwelling unit that was built at the same time as the home. It's, if you go to the assessor's website, it's on the plans. And they went to go grab their short-term rental license, and the city told them, this thing isn't permitted. You can't even, you shouldn't rent it out short-term, and you technically can't rent it out long-term. Now, with the accessory dwelling unit task force in place, you know, Abe Barge, who is heading up that task force, has very much stated that he wants to make it easier for people to make accessory dwelling units livable. So my personal theory, just personal, is that over the next couple of years, we will start to see more grandfathering in of some of these older accessory dwelling units, you know, so long as they're livable and safe, you know, you might get away with not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo the entire thing. And Wendy has a question which I can't answer. Are water rights grandfathered because it is part of an old FIFO property? I don't know if, Lisa, you have any insight?
I don't know how to answer that one either. Wendy, let me do some research on that for you, and let's connect after the class. William actually asked about Park County, and ironically, Sabrina, you and I know about this because we did a special class for a favor for someone in that area. We don't even work, ADU4U doesn't even build in that area. They told us that the ADUs are called guest houses. In a residential zone district, guest houses are permitted on lots of 20 acres or larger and require approval of a conditional use permit on lots smaller than 20 acres. In the agricultural zone district, they are permitted on lots of 35 acres or larger, and again, require approval of a conditional use permit on lots smaller than 35 acres. So I connected with John Deegan. He's the senior planner there. So if you have any additional questions, William, I would definitely connect with him. He was incredibly helpful.
Thank you, Lisa. And then Wendy just says, since water rights are first in, first out, I think we'll have to just come back to you, Wendy. Feel free to follow up after the webinar, and we can look into getting you a better answer for this. I'm sorry, we don't know. There is so much to keep track of.
That is for sure. All right, I think we can move on to the next slide. So this one's about restrictions on ADUs. We've kind of talked about that this is not for investment purposes. If the home is in a single unit zone district, in a standalone house, the owner has to live on site, either in the primary residence or in the ADU. And we are finding that kind of is the rule across the board. I don't know if that will change for Denver, but that is how it is now. It is not set up to be an investment. It is set up to be an accessory dwelling unit to the main home. We did mention this before, that there is not a separation of lots currently. I do not know again if this will change in Denver. So the ADU cannot be split from the primary residence and sold separately if the home is in a single unit zone district. So when we build ours, we cannot sell the ADU or the primary residence separately. Denver Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee determined that the homeowner cannot live in the secondary unit and short-term rent the main home. I get calls on this all the time. Another thing to be careful of. I think you just had a client, right, that was living in her ADU and wanted to short-term rent out her primary residence and discovered that she could not do that. So I'll give you an example because this is clear as mud as usual. So when our ADU is done being built, we can move into the accessory dwelling unit, but we can only long-term rent out our big primary residence. We cannot short-term rent it. If we stay in our primary, we can short-term or long-term our accessory dwelling unit. And we don't know if we're going to see a change in this as well, because I think, Sabrina, you agree with that. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but that is the rule currently. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, Sabrina?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, it is a little bit of a contradiction, I think, of this stated intention of accessory dwelling units, really to help middle and low income family homeowners, homeowners. And, you know, if someone wants to downsize, that would be huge for them to be able to short-term rent that big home. However, the excise and licensing department is just so incredibly clear that they always want only the short-term rentals to be in secondary units, and that the homeowner really needs to be kind of taking up the space, being the primary, you know, really the primary resident. So I think it's just a little mismatch in kind of the way that the two different departments are looking at things right now. I don't know what will happen in the future.
I don't either. I can tell you that one of the main conversations we're having in the ADU advisory committee is about equity. So that will be one of the pieces I think that will be discussed in more detail.
Yeah, I think so. And one other thing I wanted to mention, because I learned this recently, is that, for example, it is really only to make it even more clear how strict they are on making sure that, you know, the accessory dwelling units are used by a primary, or, you know, the primary is sort of handling both of the properties on that lot. So if my family and I were to move to a different property, we could only rent our house out to one lease. So we couldn't have two separate leases on our property. We can't have a lease on the accessory unit and on the main home. We would have to have a lease on the main home. And then if we wanted to allow the people who have the lease on the main home to sublease the accessory dwelling unit, we might be able to do that, or they can use it on their own. But we would not be able to have two separate leases on that. So that's another thing to consider in the way that they're restricting the use of these accessory dwelling units. They really are not meant to be used as essentially 2-unit or multi-unit plots.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's a question we get all the time.
And that is a plan a lot of people have. Hey, I'll live in this for a year after I build the accessory dwelling unit, and then I'll rent it out in cash flow. And to be clear, it's clear as mud, because that's only the case for properties that are in the SU zone. So if you're an RH zone or something else, then you might be able to do that. So it's important to do your due diligence.
Job security for us, Sabrina, job security. Okay, so cost to build, this is always exciting, and I want you guys to chime in on that. So people are either shocked at how low it is or shocked at how high it is. So tell us in the chat or in the Q&A what you think. The cost to build starts at $250K. I think it's a misconception that it is going to be cheaper than that it's inexpensive to build this, or that you can just pop it on top of a garage. But most of the time we find that we have to demolish the garage and start over, that it is not secure enough to hold an accessory dwelling unit above it. And because of our weather, there's a lot of things that are involved in it. It isn't like California where you can just pop it on top of your garage. So I think another reason why we love to teach this is that we want to make sure that you are explaining to your clients the cost that's involved, and that they're not getting too deep into it before they realize, or that they, an example here is that I had a real estate agent who was working with a buyer, and the buyer's parents were handy, and they thought that they could build an accessory dwelling unit for her for, you know, $25K. And then she could rent it out. And he called me and said, that does not sound right. Is that right? And I said, that is not right at all. So this is not a shed in your backyard that you can rent out. Again, everything that is involved in building a house is involved in building an accessory dwelling unit. So your minimum 250, we're building the largest one, and we're looking at 325, 350. So And the costs, are only going up. I have to be honest about that. You have to plan for some additional costs that occur as due with building homes now. Things are just more expensive year after year, so, and harder to get. So be very clear with your clients that it's a minimum of $250K. Are you guys surprised by that? High or low? I'm getting crickets here.
Yeah, sorry, I do have the chat disabled, so it's.
Oh, okay, so they can't do it on the
Yeah,
Q&A.
it's difficult
All right.
for them to
For
do that.
us, you guys, it really made sense, right? Because are we going to be able to find a 1750 square foot home in Denver for 375K? There's no way. So financially for us as a downsize, that made sense. It would really make sense if you were trying to put parents into a facility that cost $8,000 a month. So for us, it really, really made sense. And if you're short-term or long-term renting this, what you can get for rent right now, you're going to pay this off in 5 years. So it makes sense to us. And I still think it's an incredibly good investment.
So I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown on, the way that these numbers can work sometimes, especially if you're planning on renting out an accessory dwelling unit. I'll just use my own personal property as an example for you guys. So what I have is a little 450, I should say, 450 square foot carriage house. Like I said, I'm located in West Wash Park, so it's a desirable neighborhood for all different types of rentals, long-term, short-term, mid-term. It happens to be a very good location for renting in general, or for being a landlord, I should say. And so if, I'm renting out this
unit and it's completely remodeled, really nice inside and everything like that. If I'm renting this unit out on a long-term lease, 12 months unfurnished traditional, I'm probably renting it out for $1,400 a month or something like that these days, somewhere between $1,300 and $1,400. Rents do keep going up in Denver, as do home prices. And so I'm netting, maybe $17,000 a year. If I turn that into what I like to call a midterm rental, so when I use the term midterm rental, I mean something that's furnished, it's rented out for more than 30 days at a time. So I'm not subject to the short-term rental rules and regulations when I'm doing the midterm rental. The average stay, as we talked about a little bit earlier in the class on these midterm rentals, tends to be about 6 weeks or so. I'm renting it out from anywhere probably right, and it fluctuates depending on the market, $2,200 to $2,500 a month as a midterm rental. At that point in time, I am covering the cost of internet, cable, utilities for the tenant. And so I'm netting maybe, $20,000, $23,000 a year on this midterm rental. The way I rent out the property is on a short-term basis. So my average stay is 3 to 4 days. It's furnished. I'm still covering all the costs of utilities and cable, internet, things like that. I live on the property, so I don't have a full service property manager. I paid for cleaning and supplies and that sort of thing. So after taking into account all of my expenses on this short-term rental, I'm taking home, net $35,000 a year or so. So that short-term rental is giving me take home about double what it would than a long-term rental in this little carriage house. And, for us, we already had it there. We were very lucky. We took some time to do a pretty, large scale remodel on it. But we made back our money on that remodel within a year. So it was such a good financial decision to remodel and short-term rent that carriage house. Now, these numbers do work out so beautifully because it is a case study on my primary residence, which works out, in the context of an accessory dwelling unit, because an accessory dwelling unit really is meant to be on your primary residence as well. Does that include windows, doors, cabinets, appliances, etc.?
I think you're asking about the cost of the remodel. Yes, so we did new windows. We kind of changed the layout of the carriage house, all new appliances, brand new kitchen. The thing had not been touched since 1980. And I think we were all in maybe $40,000 or so. This was about 7 years ago. So keep in mind that the same remodel would probably be about $80,000 these days. Just because of how much costs have changed, and we've got such a shortage in trade labor and shortage in supplies and all of that fun stuff. So things are much more expensive than they used to be. And we didn't hire a general contractor for that. We basically acted as our own general contractor, and had plumbing done by a licensed plumber. He got the permits for us on that, things like that. So we did it sort of on the, I would say, we did it on more of a budget, the way that we did it, but still did it professionally. Of course, it was definitely not a DIY job by any means. So I answered that. So I just want to take a quick moment, if it's okay with everybody, to introduce myself and what I do. I am the founder of bnbexcellent, and I'm really on a mission to help Airbnb investors succeed. What we find is that a lot of times when people are getting started with Airbnb, they're interested in doing it, but there's a lot of sort of floundering and trying to figure out what the heck to do, and a lot of money left on the table when you start sort of in that manner. And for me, like I said, our carriage house and doing that short-term rental on that has really been life-changing for us. We did not expect all of that extra income, and it has allowed my husband and I to have, a lot of freedom in our businesses and our careers, just having that extra income that we didn't expect, that we wouldn't have otherwise had, and has really been life-changing for us. So, that's why I'm so passionate about it. Short-term rentals, I really think it can be a great way to utilize part of your primary residence, or even as a short-term rental investment. The numbers, of course, help you look at those numbers because they work out differently when it's just a pure investment. But it can make just a huge difference and help you sort of build towards those goals and those retirement goals or those vacation goals or that legacy that you'd like to leave for your family. And so here I am your resource for that, for you and your clients. I'm here to help advise, to teach people to do everything that I've done. I didn't mention it in the beginning of the class, but I am an Airbnb ambassador. I've helped over 500 hosts get started with Airbnb. I co-host over 35 properties. And so essentially I'm here to help teach all of the secrets that I have learned over the years and the systems and the way that I maximize revenue. I get my clients, typically, anywhere between 25 and 50% more revenue than similar properties, because Airbnb is a definite art and a science. And, it's a misconception that you just put up a pretty property on Airbnb, and as long as it's super pretty, you'll do really well. That's definitely not the way it works. It's kind of an ongoing marketing and pricing. So here I am to share all of these secrets with you and your clients. What we find is that helps people be comfortable with their first investment purchase. And then once they do well on one, they tend to come back to you to purchase many more. And that's kind of the goal, is to help everybody build their investment portfolios. So, if you have clients that are interested in Airbnb, you're interested in Airbnb, they have an Airbnb, just feel free to reach out to me. I'm glad to help out in any way that I can. And I'll turn it over to you, Lisa.
So I've talked a lot about this, but what ADU4U does is literally helps you build your accessory dwelling unit from start to finish. And I'm talking financing, soil testing, appraisal, survey, architectural design, construction docs. We are done with those and are in the permitting stage. They have a mechanical engineer, interior design. They go to the planning board for you, for city council. They handle the rezone. All we've had to do is the fun stuff, which is spending a lot of time on Pinterest, figuring out, you know, what our likes are, what our style is, you know, meeting with them to see the drawings and of our ADU. It's been an absolutely incredible experience with them, and we have learned so much. So it's an honor to work for the company now. And if you guys have anyone who is considering building an ADU, please reach out to me. I will do all the upfront work to figure out whether or not they can even build an ADU before getting too deep into things. You know, you can spend up to $22,000 just upfront and then find out that you cannot actually build. So my job is to make sure that that does not happen for you and for your clients. So some nice things that you guys have said about our classes, which means the world to us, because as we've said, we work really, really hard to make these good for you, that we are collectively on 3 different committees so that we can keep our finger on the pulse and make sure that you guys are updated. So we really, really appreciate the nice words after our classes. Some of them, I can't take all the credit. Lisa, you put on a great class. This was one of the most amazing workshops I've ever been to. Thank you so much. Very informative and useful, very knowledgeable instructors. So thank you again for mailing your love letters, as my dad would say.
I love it. We are going to do a quick poll for you guys. So let me get that launched. We'll take like 45 seconds to let everybody answer the poll questions. It says, I would like to learn more about, and this really helps Lisa and I cater our classes to what you guys are looking for. Build an accessory dwelling unit, personal branding, Airbnb buyer consulting services, and how to set up and maximize your Airbnb profits. All right, thank you to all who answered. Oh, looks like a few are still coming in. Okay. Thank you to everyone who answered the poll. I will share the results with you. So of course, a lot of interest in building an accessory dwelling unit. This is the class. Personal branding. Lisa teaches a personal branding class, which is really great. I highly recommend it. And then, you know, the last 2 are services that I can help everybody with. So we will stop sharing those results and go on to the next slide here. Thank you so much.
So some key takeaways, you guys. Accessory dwelling units have multiple uses and can be an exceptional wealth building tool. I love that about these. The ability to build is based on zoning, lot size, setbacks, and height restrictions that are unique to each property. I think that we have drilled it down enough that let's do your due diligence, loop one of us in on all of this before you make any promises to your clients. Process takes 18 months at a minimum, depending on the jurisdiction, and the cost to build can be more than expected, starting from $250K for a small ground level ranch. Does anyone have any questions for us? Or Justin? I think we've lost Kent, but again, I cannot say enough good things about Eclipse Sewer. Lisa, do you want to say anything?
Just that was great. I learned a lot myself, and it'd be fun to tackle. And I love how you're saying how it really could be the new wave of where people are heading, and especially with the prices of homes. That was my big aha moment to say, yeah, there is a solution for that. So thank you for sharing. It was well worth my time today for sure.
Thanks, Lisa. We love you. Thanks for being with us. Justin, you want to say anything, or are you back working?
I'm here, but just thanks everybody.
Thanks for being with us. You're the best in the biz, my friend. All right, guys, we're gonna let you go on with your day. We're thinking about you all in this crazy market. Here is our contact information, which of course we will send to you in a follow-up email along with Lisa's information, Justin, and Kent. We love teaching this class. Thank you for being here. We are passionate about short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units. Sabrina is your girl for all things short-term rental. You want to say something, Saps?
No, just thanks everyone for listening. We're glad to be here, glad to do the class. And like I said, we'll send a follow-up email, so feel free to reach out.
Have a great rest of your day, guys.